Did Epstein utilize tunnels? Did you ever have any knowledge of that?
I didn't actually see any tunnels to my knowledge, but, I do have the memory of waking up in a lab. And from the research that I've done and what I've looked into, it just seems that there has to be something underneath that island, because the accommodation on top was way too basic for a billionaire. A billionaire would have everything very smart, and, there was obviously something underneath. Because all there was a few chalets and, a room with like a kitchen and a TV. There must have been something underneath there.
Did you ever become aware of Epstein tape recording people doing things to compromise them?
When I was in New York, what happened the one night is, I'm a smoker, so I wasn't allowed to smoke in the New York mansion. So the one night I opened the window and I climbed out, and then I saw the big, so like imagine a big area like this, okay? I climbed out here, out of the room I was in. It's like 8 stories. Then in the middle down here, there's a big gold dome. So I'm sitting up here looking down. I'm like, anyway. So I smoked my cigarette. And then the next day, the man in charge of the cameras stopped me when I was walking around the mansion, the New York mansion. And he called me to the room and he said, did I open the windows last night? Because he noticed a difference in temperature regulation. And I don't know if I was honest and told him I smoked a cigarette. I didn't want to get in trouble. I think I might have told him no. But he just said to me, he took me in the room and he showed me like 40 screens. And he said, everything here is being monitored. Because I think when I climbed out, they worry that someone's coming in or something from the top. And he just showed me and just told me, that everything's being watched. So you see, when I opened that window and climbed up with the cigarette, it was triggered. And then he told me that they don't only have that whole system there in New York, he also has it at his house in New Jersey. Because when he's not at work, he's at home watching the cameras. And it was like 40 TVs, like all this size, of every inch of the place. But, I never saw every room in that place. And I didn't see camera monitoring at any other property, but I'm sure they did have cameras monitoring there. But the New York one was very much, they had a whole room of it. It was a whole security room. Like the room was about 20 by 20 meters big, the security room.
So when Maxwell entered the picture, do you recall any conversations you had with her or what she said to you?
I was always very nervous of her because, she's a very, very intelligent woman and very frightening, very entitled. The only thing I remember is, I remember a lot, but she told me how she was snogging Ralph Fiennes at a movie premiere. I really didn't speak to her much. I used to avoid her. But I remember Epstein hated the fact that I smoked cigarettes, and she actually stood up for me and she said, when her father died, she used to smoke 3 boxes a day or something. But I mean, I don't know if that's true, that her father even died. But
there's an interesting book on that that I read called The Assassination of Robert Maxwell. So, all right, so you're describing now where you're getting to the end of the 18 months and you're a mess. What got you out of there?
I suppose me putting on weight and stuff. I put on weight and started becoming a bit more sort of less obedient to him. And I wasn't bringing him girls and stuff as he wanted. But actually, do you know what else I think happened? Because when I was there, he brought out the article that Maria and Annie Farmer had written, about him. He was being very stressed about that at the time when I was there. He said that there were these girls who were infatuated with him, that were trying to destroy him. And then I think also it became hard for him flying people around after that, because he got caught pretty soon after that. So I don't know if it's maybe to do with that also. But I don't know. Also, he had that girl Nadia Monchenko there at the time. The girl from overseas who apparently he bought from her parents, which is also very suspicious, you know. I started to wonder, okay, if they're cloning people, maybe she's a clone. Because, you know, she's also a pilot. She's beautiful and she's a pilot and she does all these things. It's like, okay. Much like, you know, that woman Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos, the company that David Boyes funded. It's like a perfect business. Like, you know, create a big company, steal a lot of money, and just send the clone to prison. You know, if you can make a clone, just blame it all on the clone, chuck the clone in jail. Sorry, I've distracted again. But, you know, I think that the body we saw of Epstein's in the jail was a clone. Apparently he's still alive.
Did he tell you you had to leave, or did you just go, or how did you get out?
Well, he was. I would never stay there for long. He knew I would have got away. So, I mean, he used to bring me for these short trips, and that's why I also think they were taking our eggs. You know, because of the weird things that happened, and also the butterfly trust that they have. And then, you know, it's a horrible thing to think about, but you know, if they really are into it, it would make sense for them to have their own farm of eggs. I suppose maybe, you know, he also always said that after girls were 22, they were no longer attractive or useful. You know, so, you know, I wouldn't have gone back again anyway, because, you know, I was in New York after that. I had a boyfriend, an amazing boyfriend in New York. I spent 2.5 years of my life in New York after that. I never once tried to see Epstein.
Good.
And he was just a few roads down. You know, I obviously didn't want to see him.
Was it hard though, because you were in a mess in your mind to have a boyfriend? Was it difficult?
That boyfriend actually helped me a lot, because I told him about what had happened. He was a very patriotic American. He thought I was lying about what had happened because he was so patriotic, and eventually he realized I wasn't lying, and he's actually one of my saviors. You know, he paid for therapists.
I can just imagine now you telling him Epstein, Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, and this guy's thinking, this cannot be real, kind of thing.
No, he didn't believe it.
Yeah.
But he helped me through so much. Wow. Paid for me to see therapists, and there even emails. He even testified for me with the boys' lawyers, because the emails between him and I, where he told me that not everyone's like Epstein and I mustn't be so scared. You know?
So when you were having therapy, did you have good chemistry with your therapist?
Yeah, she was an amazing therapist. She helped me a lot. Yeah, it was like a talk therapist. I was never put on pills. Because, you know, that's another thing. Is a lot of people, you know, they've got the mental health fund for the survivors. Well, I won't go ahead with that mental health fund because I wanted my therapist to help. And she wrote up a whole plan, but they forced her to put provision for a psychiatrist. And as soon as there's a provision for a psychiatrist, there's a provision for pills, and I don't want pills.
Yeah, it's good to have a holistic approach. I agree with you entirely. All right, so when you're with this boyfriend now, how old are you in the story at that point?
With Tim, when I met him, I was about 25. Yeah, we dated from 25 to when I was 35.
And were your parents aware by the time you were 25 of what had happened with Epstein?
The only person I ever told was Tim. Never told anyone else. I was too ashamed.
Okay, and do you remember the year Epstein got arrested the first time?
2006.
And when you saw that in the news, did that resurrect memories for you and bring about trauma?
Yeah, it did. But also, like, he was like such a clever person, Epstein, that he always made me feel like it was my fault. He made all the victims feel like it was their fault, and we were like cheap pieces of nothing. So, you know, I was just like, I didn't really realize the depth of their evil right then. You know, only after he actually died did I have time to actually speak about it and look into it and then do more research myself. You know, also because I was given money through the fund. So I was able to step off the hamster wheel of work and just have a bit of time to sort of look into what happened. And that's when I realized I needed to start speaking out, because I didn't want to speak out at first at all. I just want to have a happy, quiet life. But then when I realized that they're victims who can no longer speak, I realized that I have to speak for them. And, that's why we're here, is speaking about Virginia being found dead. There's so many victims. I even heard another story about another victim who was apparently found drowned in Missouri or Mississippi recently. It's like...
So Nancy Grace did a piece last night, and she said there were two other survivors. There was Carolyn Andriano, and there was Lee Sky Patrick.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. And Ruslana, who was like Rapunzel. And with that, we can bring in Disney princesses, but let's bring that in next.
So what happened to Ruslana?
She jumped off a balcony in New York, apparently. A beautiful girl who was taken to Epstein Island. And that story always struck me so hard. And then I only found out years later that she was taken to Epstein Island. The most beautiful, stunning girl. She had hair, like long hair, and stunning. They called her Rapunzel. And you know about the JP Morgan, how they had the code name Snow White, Disney princesses. And another creepy thing is that, Virginia Gifford died on Alice Day. They've got a day called Alice Day, which is to do with like Disney princesses and stuff, the 25th of April. And that's the day that Virginia Gifford was found dead. And Virginia Gifford always reminded Maria Farmer and I of Alice in Wonderland. Because, Wonderland, the rabbit hole is... Yeah.
So... You're okay. You're all right. You're fine. Take your time. So, we were talking about the first time Jeffrey got arrested, and it was in the news, and how you felt at that time, and then he got like a very light sentence, didn't he? Were you watching to see what sentence he got?
Yeah, I was, and I actually saw him one time after that, because when I was in New York, like I said, I had the boyfriend. I contacted a girl I'd made friends with who was working for him, and we were going for coffee because, we sort of kept in touch. She was actually from South Africa. To be honest, I actually introduced her to him, and I always feel bad for that. But the thing is, she was older than me. She was about 26 when I introduced her, and he was looking for CVs. And I warned her before. I said, this man is going to make sexual advances at you. I warned her. And she said, don't worry, I can handle it. Her name's Sue Hamlin. She went and she worked for him for many years. They became very close. I think she made a lot of money off it all. I don't know. But anyway, she was a girl I knew from South Africa, and she approached me asking me. I never approached her. And I was never paid money to introduce her to him either. We also sent my mum's friends CVs because, some of my mum's single friends, at the time we didn't know how evil he was. I knew he was like taking great advantage of me and the other girls. But as a young girl from Africa, where people are quite poor, some of the people I know were like, wow, please introduce me to this man. So, I sent my mum's friends CVs, and then also Sue's CV. And Sue ended up working for him, and she ended up staying there for very long. So anyway, I would never want to drag Sue into this. Sue's been traumatized through it, and I don't even speak to Sue anymore. And, I did warn her before she went, and I was never paid money for introducing her to him, and she stayed there for 20 years. It was her choice. But we went out the one day for coffee. And then I think it was in like about 2009 or 2011. And then Epstein wanted to say hello to me when I went past to meet her, and we were going for coffee. And then I went and sat in his office with him. I mean, this is years after he molested me and everything. And I said, I'm sorry that he was sent to prison, because, I was still like sort of sucked in with his thinking he was a decent person. Because, when these people abuse you, they do that. And people need to realize that. A lot of children get abused by parents. A lot of people get abused by people they trust. And it can really mess people's heads up, because when the person you're thinking you can trust abuses you, and it's a big thing that needs to be actually dealt with, because it's very hard for people to speak out. And, I never really trusted him, but unfortunately, I was petrified by him. But when I asked him about prison, he just laughed and he said, "Oh no, he never went to prison." He said, he said, no, he never got sent to prison. He just like laughed at me when I asked that. But that was the last time I ever saw him. But he also did send me, because when I was with my child's father didn't believe that I knew him, because I said, I know that man. And then I emailed him to prove it to my child's father that I knew him. And then he emailed me back asking me for news. And that was a month before he died. Because, I just had a baby and everything. I never ever sent him nude photos. And it was very weird that he suddenly asked for nude photos because he'd never asked for them before. But I always felt like he was watching me through my computer. Computers came out and everything. And I always felt he was so powerful, like he could see me. And that's why I used to like almost email him to let him know, like, hi, I know you're watching me, But it's just, the whole thing's actually got so frightening and creepy. And, with Virginia Gifford being found dead, another thing I want to bring up is, who was this woman who was supposed to be staying with her? She had this Kira, this woman who was about 70, the one who was apparently in the bus accident. Where was she when Virginia was found dead? Was she a Kira or was she a handler? Where was she when this happened? And also, why did Virginia, who's 41, need a Kira who's 70? It's suspicious. And Virginia and I used to speak a lot. We were on a group chat. We did many video calls. She's an amazing girl. Suddenly, I could only get in touch with her through her husband's email address. It's like she'd almost been cut off. I can imagine when someone's been put through so much pressure and standing up, against these people, the anxiety can kick in and people can be given pills. And it's very easy to kill people on pills, much like Elvis. There are a lot of celebrities who've been knocked off with pills. And that's why it's always best to stay off pills. Pills are a temporary measure, not a permanent one.
Yeah, well said. That's what I believe has happened as well. It's called pharmacide.
Yeah. Pharmacy. Yeah, pharmacy is pharmacy. Take away the P, it's pharmacy. Add an F, you've got pharmacy. Farm. Let food be their medicine, not the pills.
Yeah.
Pills are only for extreme circumstances. When someone really is not coping, then they need the pills. But not in general,